Hit it, brother. Whenever you're ready.
All right, are we rolling?
Yes. 30 seconds.
From Universal City with absolutely no touching whatsoever, where we bring your fantasy to life, it's Late Night Playset. Tonight, producer, director, writer, comedy legend, Paul Provenza. We go behind the orange curtain on How You Copin', and Mrs. Ryan with No, seriously, what the hell is going on? And now,
oh my God, that was so funny. Come on, man. You got to be here every day now.
all right.
How do we come back from that?
We need a real sponsor to give us real dough.
God, that was so great.
Yeah.
Funny stuff. Hi, Mrs. Ryan. Oh, look at that. He did that, and there we go. Now keep him on camera. That was our first announcement.
It was awesome.
Wasn't that crazy?
Yeah. Felt pretty rad.
You're pretty rad.
Thanks.
Forgive me, I got all my buttons to do over here. Everything. For everybody else, I've been streamlining a bunch of stuff, and that means changing some stuff around. What else is new, right? I know. But for me, getting some buttons out of here is going to help this whole thing, and I think keep me a little more attentive to you. And oh, shit. Speaking of which, hey, Richard Chassler, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
You mentioned it in the opening. Who is our guest today standing right next to you?
My buddy Paul Provenza is going to grace the set today.
Pretty exciting.
With Tales and Regale.
Tales and Regales. All right. Mrs. Ryan, let's see. We will bring it back in here and start the old show up. Welcome back to you at home. Tonight is Wednesday, March 18th, 2020. As we already covered, my name is Jay Ryan. This is Nicole Ryan. I think we can stop that part now that you're announcing. And we do want to talk about our guest this evening. It is Mr. Paul Provenza, and we couldn't be more excited about that.
So
This is one of those days where it feels like a real show in here, and that's because of you. So thank you for being here.
I'll put a stop to that real quick.
As soon as he gets in. Shut it down. All right, well, let's see. We're still in the middle of this thing, aren't we, Mrs. Ryan? Oh,
yes.
Gosh.
It's happening everywhere.
What do we call it? Do we have a name for it, Chaz? This like Coco 2020 or something? What are we calling it?
COVID-19.
That would be if Conan had started the virus.
What have you heard?
He started the fire, but not the virus.
Oh, my goodness.
I've heard it called moronivirus.
Moronivirus?
Miley Cyrus virus. I mean, it's,
oh, my gosh.
We're calling it everything I can possibly.
So that we don't have a Bradgelina for this one yet or anything like that?
No.
Oh, my gosh. All right. Well, I feel for our community, we should probably talk about some of the closings and cancellations that have been going on. In addition to California being nearly shuttered, we've got a lot of car stuff that has been canceled, and all the big ones. California Festival of Speed this morning was just canceled. That's a big one up at the racetrack. Yeah, and I mean, how could it have occurred when you think about everything that's going on? But that's a big one. And then even the smallest ones, such as even Newcomb's Ranch, has had to shut for a few weeks. They've decided to adhere to recommendations and just be better safe than sorry. So if Malibu Kitchen shutters, we will have no place to go.
Dear Susie and Bill, please stay open.
They're such a family-oriented place. I feel like they will stay open anyway, regardless. You got to make those muffins and everything. But yeah, it's weird. It's weird out there. And one of the segments we've been doing is How You Copin'. And I'm hoping that maybe some of you will send in some of your videos and show us how you've been coping. What are you eating at home? Are you cleaning out your cupboards, your closets? Are you playing games, doing puzzles? What's going on? What are you doing? How are you passing the time? I'm curious. Are you?
I'm curious.
Yeah.
I see photos on Instagram of people like, this was the last Frozen thing available at the store. Like,
that was Bob Reed, and you laughed at it, and I was like, I've been following him for a week. That was the last thing in the store. Bob cleaned him out, or Clark did. It was Amy. It was a funny thing, though. It was Amy's, I have to say, this was meatless pepperoni pasta dinner. Meatless pepperoni, I guess that's doable. Have you ever had meatless pepperoni?
Oh, yeah. I was vegan for many years. In fact, I have meatless sausage in my fridge right now.
Really?
I really do.
So why are we doing the maybe that's what I've never understood. Why do we do the whole sausage thing then if it's not
good for the environment, good for the planet.
No. I get all that, but then why are you? It's like a veggie burger. I never really understood veggie burger either. When you could have a salad, etc. I've eaten many veggie burgers. I just don't really understand the concept.
I became a vegan in 1990, and when I became a vegan, there was only one company on the market that really made substitute stuff, and that was Morningstar Farms. Okay, and when you can't eat a hamburger and you can't eat a turkey burger, you want a hot sandwich of sort that will substitute that you can put all the toppings on and simulate the fact that you're still at the barbecue going, hey, that was walking around 8 weeks ago, but still having something to eat.
Right.
You know, and that's why the veggie burger that's where it comes in.
All right.
Yeah.
Convenience, just like a regular burger.
Yeah, but it's all fucking bullshit. I mean, it's not a hamburger, no matter how you slice it.
How do people slice hamburgers? I guess some people in half, sure. Let's see, Mrs. Ryan. We talked about the closings and cancellations. This seems like local radio. And the Bethel public schools are closed, and also public and parochial. Cancellations. Guests. Oh gosh, we were going to have a great guest tomorrow. Tom Ridings. Tom Ridings is, actually Lisa Taylor canceled for Tom Ridings. However, this morning, Tom liked everything on post, every single thing on Facebook, all the social media. Tom Ridings will not be here tomorrow. He is over 65, advised to stay at home, and they're doing that. And kudos to those guys. Tom, we love you, and Lisa, we love you, and we'll see you guys soon.
Yeah.
Stay social in the meantime on the Instagram and stuff. So that was it for announcements, Mrs. Ryan. I just have East Coast Feed.
Okay.
Check in with them. And then, of course, we got to do How You Coping, because that's the landscape.
See what's up.
All right. Let's check in over here. East Coast Feed, Danbury Chive, and I believe we are at work today, Ridgefield BMW. Roll it, Hal.
Mr. and Mrs. Ryan, Feedcast coming in from BMW as usual. Look what I got behind you on the lift. It's a brand spanking new M8. Now, why would that be in the lift, are you asking? I don't know. Let's go take a look. Maybe because it's only got 1,000 miles on it. And let's see if we can get a picture of it up here. Hang on. Oh, there it is. Yeah, that is the drive shaft. And as you can see, it's kind of twisted into some strange metal that doesn't belong like that. And this is the universal joint of the drive shaft, which also shouldn't look like a bunch of string hanging down. That's not good. So, hey, for a couple 100,000, you too, while sitting in traffic, go to step on the gas, you can have this illustrious vehicle fail on you.
Oh, my gosh.
That was gnarly.
That was gnarly. Good grief. Brand new car. 200 grand, he said.
Oh.
M8 convertible. Looked like I'm guessing it might have been a carbon fiber drive shaft, because that's what we had on the M4, I think. Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing it's something like that, and it just looks like it's shredded.
Yeah.
I don't know how that even happens.
Icky.
We checked in with Danbury Chive down at Ridgefield BMW yesterday on the show, and they said they're open, but they're wiping everything down constantly. People just walking around with wipes. Every steering wheel, every emergency brake, every shift knob, every window, but all the things whenever it comes in, they got to do every
before
single
it's touched,
car
like
before they touch it. Yeah, and then go to work.
It's, I guess, all you can do, but it's heavy.
I've never been so grateful to both work from home and have a facility where we can actually get out of the home. I mean, we don't feel confined thanks to this marvelous technology here, and of course our friend at home who's on the other end.
Yeah.
All right, how you coping? Let's see. Should have had this set up, but I think we'll be okay. As you know, we have been checking in with people to see what the heck. Oh, there's a text from Kat DeLorean. We checked in with her the other day to see. She was our first person we checked in with. All right, today we're going to check in with. Should I say it? Well, we'll just call it. See if they answer. You got that on your deal there?
Yes.
All right.
Good morning, this is Paul.
Hi, Paul. I'm calling to see how Auto Kennel is coping. It's Jay and Nicole, and you're on the air.
Hello.
Oh, hey, guys. How you doing?
Welcome back to the old late night playset, Paul Kennel. We're doing a segment that we like to call, Mrs. Ryan, what's it called?
How you coping?
How you coping?
Well.
How things down at Auto Kennel?
Everything's good. Surprisingly, since most of our business is online or over the phone, and it's not exactly a retail business, I think people are at home and they've got more time than they planned on having, and they're online looking at toys and And I think we know that, unlike the financial crisis where we're not sure where the end is, we can, I think begin to project based on how China's doing that there is going to be an end.
Yeah.
And it's going to be probably, sooner than maybe even people think right now. It feels dismal. It feels depressing if you stay at home and read the news all day long.
Yeah.
But, I've been at home editing a video from our rally last weekend, and I think I was talking to a couple other people. I think driving cars is probably the most fun social distancing event we can do, which is right up our alley.
Couldn't agree more. We were bummed. Just found out this morning they closed Newcomb's, but that doesn't mean we can't all drive together.
I was just thinking the same thing. We bring a thermos of our own coffee.
Yep.
A couple snacks. Drive up there.
Box of donuts, space them out
wave
individually.
roll down the windows a crack, wave from each other's cars.
It's not all that dissimilar to what we do now, just no hugs,
Yeah,
Awesome.
just no hugs. So I think...
Well, I'm glad you guys are doing so well down there then. Is the Ed sterilizing the showroom at least?
No, my dad actually wanted to come in this week, and I basically, my dad's, he's very sprightly, but he's still 77.
Yeah.
And I've, between my mom and my sister, we forced him to stay at home. So
Better off safe at home, yeah.
my parents are staying at home. I really don't need much.
This way everybody gets a little vacation.
Yeah, everyone gets vacation. Our mechanics are still open. They're catching up on a lot of the projects, and so I think it's okay.
Awesome. Well, glad to hear that. I'm glad that the Ed is staying at home as well. We had Tom Ridings was supposed to be on yesterday, but he, of course, is 65 plus, so he's staying home as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any advice for anyone out there other than, hang in there because maybe it won't be so bad?
Save toilet paper for people who really need it.
No hoarding.
Thanks,
No
Paul
hoarding.
Kennel.
Yeah, good call.
hoarding.
You're
Good
so
sleep
sweet.
and just share.
All right, we love you, buddy. Thanks so much for letting us know what you've been up to.
Yeah.
Talk
Love
to you
too.
soon.
Be healthy.
Can't wait for that new video from the rally.
Sounds good.
All right,
See ya.
bye-bye.
Thanks.
Funny stuff. All right. So that's
So
what
good
he's
to
been
hear
doing.
his voice.
It's nice to hear that he's been not so negatively affected. So many people we know have been.
Yeah.
With the outwork and everything else. It's nice to know that I guess people are still buying cars. I don't know. I can't
love
imagine
people
car shopping
that are
right now.
seeing different ways of looking at this. Like his customers are at home and they're buying toys. He's
Yeah.
like, how to do that?
How bad can it be?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right. Well, I like it. And that's been How You Coping? All right, Mrs. Ryan, I think it is time to ask the question that's on everyone's mind. And we can move this whole thing along right here. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Seriously, what the hell is going on, Mrs. Ryan? Dun, 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 dun.
Hilarious. Okay, Nashville's a disaster zone. It had tornadoes and whatever. But Brad Paisley and Kimberly Williams, who I adore, they opened up the grocery store that's free, basically, and they're continuing deliveries for seniors because they're like
Do
don't
they
need
own
to
the
go
store
out.
anyway, or they're just paying for it to be opened?
They built it and owned it.
Oh, wow, great.
And I talked about it a year ago. It opened construction a year ago, and it just opened its doors last month. But they're like, seniors stay home. We'll get delivery people to bring a week's
love it.
worth of groceries to your house.
That's just lovely.
Yeah.
Way to help. I love watching the celebrities who are have means and they're helping right now in different ways. I really think it's great.
Me too. It's a really nice note to come out of Nashville.
I think I might have gotten confused on that one. Is it somebody else owns is it Steve Carell owns a general store up in Maine or someplace? Do you know about that?
Ooh, I don't know about that.
All right. Well, I don't want to spread rumors, but I think that's true.
I'll look into that. UCLA got an almost $4 million grant to study how cannabinoids and terpenes interact to lessen pain requirements and opioid needs and stuff. So I'm super thrilled that the research process is starting.
I am more educated on this than I used to be, thanks to you and some of our guests who've been here. As I understand it, it's not dissimilar to making wine. And you've got you're making your cannabis, whatever, and then the terpenes, I believe, are added for different flavors, for different whatevers. So I would imagine there is got to be some very intense chemistry going on there. And if they can figure out a way that, oh, this one does this and this one does this, I think that's great.
That's what this study is doing. They're like differentiating different terpenes, which are like compounded properties and stuff.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to see what comes out of this.
Sweet.
This I love so much. John Stamos has teamed with the people that brought School of Rock to Nickelodeon to bring to share the influence of Beach Boys songs.
Oh.
And there's a docuseries in the works and development called Good Vibes Only that he's spearheading for HBO.
I love everything about this. I remember his character being obsessed with the Beach Boys on that show. Is there any correlation? Is the real John Stamos also a fan? Or is this just he would be a good spokesperson because Uncle Jesse?
No, he's such a fan.
Oh, great.
He's been involved with them for a long
That's
time.
Wonderful
and
music.
Yeah.
That is the good vibes. The California good vibes right there.
Yeah, this story is about misfits that are like figuring it out. And I adore that he's like talking about it and bringing that energy of good vibes.
I'm sorry, what you're doing isn't funny. I'm watching Paul Provenza fix our set over there.
Well, I'm almost done.
Fixing our tent. I'm sorry.
Is this real?
And that's been.
Thanks, buddy.
Just loving your commitment.
Oh, what's going on, Mrs. Ryan?
I love it.
Oh, we said we were going to start playing it a little more loose.
Here
All
we
right.
go.
It is time to take a break in here. We're going to get our guest, Paul Provenza, to come in the studio and sit in that set right there, that chair right there. Mrs. Ryan and I are going to take a break. Richard Chassler is going to get me to sell some hot sauce in a few minutes here. Come on back. The Late Night Playset will be back. More to come right after this. Oh, God, you're my favorite. It's amazing.
Oh, so delicious. It's the hot sauce made by Bears. Garlic and serrano mixed with love and care. You can put it on your eggs, pour it on your rice. It's great on a leg, it's better on a slice. It's oh so delicious. It's the hot sauce made by Bears. Oh, so delicious hot sauce. Great on everything except oatmeal.
Get your bottle today at ohsodelicious.org. $1 from every bottle sold goes to the National Military Family Association.
Could easily be an impersonator. Just the voice.
I'll know.
Well, we're back,
With that guy.
and that guy's here.
I think this whole coronavirus plague thing might be a little overblown. I think it's important to maintain a certain, perspective on this.
You pulled that off our wall. I can't believe
I
it's
pulled
even
it off your
sticking
wall.
to your
I can't
face.
believe you have a medieval bubonic plague mask right here on the wall. What a coincidence.
It is a coincidence. That was from a TV show called Everybody Hates Chris. I can't remember how or why we used it, but we used
Well,
it for
was from
something, and then I
from the
kept
big-
it ever
It was
since.
from the big plague episode.
That's the big plague of the 1980s.
What if I kept this on the whole time? How annoying would that be?
We thought it was
Would
going to
be
be very
really
funny
annoying?
because, yeah, why not? You pay for Paul Provenza, and then this guy from Eyes Wide Shut shows up. Ow!
I could be Wayne Cotter. You'd never know.
Oh!
I could be Wayne Cotter or Adam Ferrara. You'd never know. We all have the same
Or Adam
mold.
Ferrara.
Yeah. The three of us should be brothers. We look so much alike.
We are sitting here. We are back, and we are sitting here with Mr. Paul Provenza. Hi, Mr. Paul Provenza.
I'm
Hey,
okay.
there he is.
Okay, I'm back.
Yay!
There we go.
This is so cool, you guys. I know this. You've been doing this for a while, and the whole thing about the Letterman set and the microphone and everything is all
I can't
probably
believe you did
played
so much
out to you.
research.
But to me, it's genius, and I can't stop thinking about it. It's awesome.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
love
This
you
is
for being
this is without a doubt the finest dumpster diving I've ever encountered.
Can you
This is-
imagine? Can you imagine if I actually jumped
Unbelievable.
into a dumpster to get this stuff?
It is unbelievable. Who'd you bribe?
The garbage man.
See, it's unbelievable.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for
Thanks for
caring.
having
Thanks for
me.
thinking this is cool. From the moment you walked in the door, you have been like the little kid that I am when I look at all this stuff and checking out all the details, going and touching stuff.
As I said, I didn't know that this was a fantasy of mine, but it is now. I'm so envious that you have all of this stuff and you're doing a thing, and it's unbelievable.
Oh man. Well, thanks again. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
The whole thing got magic.
Have a lot of people canceled on you because of the big coronavirus epidemic scare?
No, only the first one so far. We thought you would. No offense.
No,
I mean, we just sort of assumed.
Show business has decided for me many years ago that I am socially distant. So I have nothing's changed for me for quite a while.
Is that most comedians just by nature, or is it you and your lifestyle?
It's just me and show business.
Okay.
Show business is not my friend. Show business has a great deal of animosity towards me.
Really?
Yeah.
Why am I finding out about it now?
I don't like to talk about it much, and show business is going to talk about it because show business doesn't know I exist anymore.
Oh.
It's a strange thing, yeah.
From comedy to producing to nobody?
Well, what happened was I left the country for like 15 years, pretty much. I mean, I was outside the country more than I was inside the country.
Working.
I was on the international circuit, doing the festival circuit, and I developed... while I started doing that, I had started work on the Aristocrats, which was quite some time ago now. And I did a book and developed The Green Room, which ran on Showtime, still available on demand.
We still watch it to this day nonstop.
And a series in the UK of a brilliant show created by Troy Conrad that I worked with him on called Set List, which runs here in LA when we're allowed to go out and see other human beings again. And there's a short-form Nerdist channel series of it, but we did 14 half-hour episodes for the UK. So it was the most productive time of my life. It was the most creatively exciting and interesting, and all the projects I did were so different, and I felt like I was coming alive. I felt like, I'd reached this place where the creativity and it just felt great, because you go through periods where you feel that and then you don't feel that, and you're in kind of a fallow period or whatever, and it was just creatively it was explosive for me, but I was out of the country so much that when I came back they were like, oh yeah, I remember you.
Who are you?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, but life is what it is, and I'm here now. So
I look at you. You look exactly the same. I look at you. You sound exactly the same.
Well, they never cared for me to begin with.
This is ridiculous to me because I grew up with you, and I don't mean like I grew up watching you like a little kid. I mean I grew up watching your career.
Yeah, yeah.
And so to me, you've always been there and always present, and you being here is a big deal to me. I can't imagine it wouldn't be for other people.
Oh, well, you got to get out more. You got to get out a little more.
Not allowed to.
Not allowed anymore. I know. It's
it's
really going to screw us all up.
The whole system.
We're really. No, it's just the vagaries of show business, and I like really offbeat, weird things. I like things that are not easily categorizable. I like things that aren't about demographics, that are about just whatever it is that I feel like putting out there.
You go by the feelings and the drive and the direction.
Yeah, and what I find interesting, basically everything I've been doing in my work for almost 20 years now I'm really doing it for me at 14.
Yeah.
I decided at a certain point, I'm not going to change comedy. I'm not going to take the art form to a new place or any of that sort of stuff in stand-up. It's just not, at a certain point in life, you go, okay, I'm never going to play for the Yankees. So, I actually had a thing. It's like, okay, so for the rest of my life, what do I really want to do? And I landed on the fact that I want to give something back to comedy, which saved my life, which made my existence possible. And I thought, well, if I can give something back to comedy, at least I feel okay, regardless of what anybody notices. And so everything that I've been doing, really, I realized is basically for me at 14. That somewhere there's going to be a 14-year-old kid who's going to see some of this stuff, and it's going to change him or her, as we all do. I mean, even George. I had the good fortune of becoming friendly with George Carlin in the years before his death.
What's the name again?
George Carlin. Do you remember? He used to be big.
Google probably.
And he said the same thing. He said, you can donate all the money you want to Darfur or to, Syria, whatever. You can donate all the money you want, donate all your old sweaters, whatever. He goes, but it won't make any difference, anything near as close as influencing somebody whose life is ahead of them, and you change their perspective and you inspire them in some way. He goes, that will do more for you than donating any of your old clothes or any of that stuff. And that sort of stuck with me. I was like, well, that really does have value, because I remember when I was like 14, 15, and I would see things that just changed my entire way of being on Earth, and just, opened up all sorts of avenues and things.
Opened your thinking.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, so it doesn't matter who notices. Somewhere there's going to be a 13, 14, 15-year-old boy or girl who's going to see something in the midst of everything else that they can see. Yeah. And so that's pretty much what I'm doing.
But I don't know how to say this, but if that isn't clear, you're describing somebody who I would say has life figured out. I would say, you got there earlier than a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I would have. I would certainly like to be working, big stages and TV shows that people actually watch, and doing all those things that you kind of aspire to.
Of course.
But there's something, I don't know. I'm not likable. Let's start with that. And then after that,
true.
And
have
then
you
after
seen any of your work?
The Green
Room is one of my favorite talk shows of all time.
Well, thank you. That was a big. That's the first time I ever felt like I was genuinely being authentic on camera.
It was great.
And I loved it. And that's why
a lot of people on this show that I've asked him to book because I saw them on the Green Room.
See, if you were 14, this would mean something to me.
You don't get it.
Your influence.
You got me when I was 14.
Your
you got me before you figured it out.
It's all the same.
It's a thing. It's a thing that people don't talk about. People don't talk about transitioning in phases of a career, and that's why there's no real roadmap, and it involves a lot of struggle when you reach a certain point. If I had ever at my peak of recognizability. And
was the chair more comfortable last time?
I'm leaning on the desk, and I actually said, "Oh, Dave's going to get mad at me." So I took my. That's how much their energy there is in this, because Dave did get mad easy. Anyway, there are ups and downs and all, but at a certain point, if you're somebody who cultivated an audience that stays with you, like a guy like Lewis Black, he's got to be late 60s, pushing 70. I don't even know, right?
I assume 70s by now.
But he's had his own audience coming with him for a long, long, long time, many decades. So, when he gets up and goes to do a gig, he's playing in front of 1,000 people, and it's 1,000 people that want to see him, and there's a blank canvas and a palette that is, uncensored, uninhibited. He can do whatever he wants because those people are there to see him and whatever he wants to do.
Yeah.
When at my peak of recognizability, maybe 25% of any given audience was coming to see me. Everybody else was just coming to a club to see comedy, or an act that I happened to be opening for. Beach Boys, by the way, was
nice.
one of them.
Nice
just
callback.
a little
thing. Who produced this show?
So when that's been your life, you get to the point where you reach a certain age and you realize that every show you're doing is basically, for most of the audience, it's a blind date, and it's exhausting, and it's tiring, and it's inhibiting because you have to sort of bring everybody into who you are before you get to really spread your wings. And that's just not as enjoyable as it used to be. And I feel like there's such a din. How do you break through this din? There's a din. Everything's a din. Everything's in the din. You can't even tell what's important because it's all in the din. Everything is in fun. So how do you break through? You can't really look at it and say that's what I'm going to do. You just got to do what you want to do and say somebody stumbles across it. Great. It would be nice if somebody paid me to do something, but that doesn't seem to be happening. So I'm going to take some shit from your house.
Okay.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Just stay.
I'm just going to rifle through the drawers and take some stuff.
Go to town, man. Good luck.
Wow. All right. Well, you paint an interesting perspective, and I like that you're talking about something that people don't normally talk about.
Yeah, because it really is. You just got to figure out what means something to you. Because at the core of it, I'm going to tell you a great story that I worked closely with Penn Jillette and Teller. We were friends for many years.
Didn't you do the Aristocrats?
We did the Aristocrats, Penn and I. Yeah.
He, to me, also brilliant brain.
Yeah, and I had the wonderful opportunity of actually directing a few pieces that they were putting into their stage show and stuff. And we've just known each other for a long time. Yeah,
very cool.
And so I've been very close with those guys. And Penn once told me a story that was fascinating. That Penn and Teller were originally a trio called the Asparagus Valley Cultural Society. And I had seen them in Philadelphia in the late 70s as Asparagus Valley. But then the third member was a musician named Weir something, I forget his full name. He decided he didn't want to go into show business. I think he became a chemistry teacher or something. But so Penn and Teller had to go on the road, had to do they already had things booked up, right? But they had to do it as a duo. So they had to switch from a trio to a duo. And that changed their relationship dynamic immensely. And they did a lot of soul searching, and they was like, let's do this. And they had to really get to some places about this. And Penn told me this one story about they were playing in Atlantic City. It was one of the first gigs they were doing as a duo. They were booked as the trio, but they continued to do this gig as a duo. And while they're in Atlantic City, they're going through the paper, what's going on, and they see that Marty Allen and Steve Rossi are playing in town, but they're playing like in the back room of an Italian restaurant off the strip. You know, that's the stuff that happens.
Show,
so,
yeah.
right? No, just that's where they're working these days. I mean, they're not exactly hot anymore. You know,
Wow.
although they were household names when I was a kid. Everybody knew who Allen and Rossi were, right? So they're playing this back room in an Italian restaurant. So they look at each other and they go, "Let's go see Allen and Rossi. This is what a great thing to see these people from China." So they go and they're sitting back there and there's like, 25, 35 people in the place eating, calling the waiter in the middle of the show and everything. And Allen and Rossi are performing. And Penn said, I turned to tell her and I said, in 30 years, this could be us. Just the realities of show business, right? And he said, and tell her, just sat there quietly for a couple of minutes. And then at some point he leaned over to me and he said, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting sort of story for me because it was like, why are we doing this in the first place? Why, when I was 16, did I want to get up on stage? Why did it become why did I devote myself to
That was my next question.
And the answer is to do it, to make a room full of people laugh. And if you can always do that, then, you're kind of living your dream. Everything else is different. And so to get to that basic of what do I want to do? And for me, it ultimately boils down to, well, I don't know, I'm not going to have a big hit TV show. I probably won't have I won't get a talk show. I'm not going to, be selling out Madison Square Garden or any of that shit. So why am I doing this? And it's like, because I love comedy and I want to experiment with it. So I've been working in a lot of different forms, filmmaking, writing, all sorts of different things to try and see what I can do for myself in terms of comedy.
Exploring your own sort of...
Yeah, and taking on challenges. Like I'm working on a documentary right now, which I've been working on for, I think it's 5 million years now. I mean, like a long time. But it's so fascinating because it's a great comedic challenge to try and make comedy out of a really, really dark and emotional material. And I will finish it and somebody will see it, but I'm really doing it just because this is like climbing comedy Mount Everest, so I'm going to try it.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah.
What is the subject matter?
The subject
Either
matter.
I glossed over it or you didn't say.
The subject matter is, I don't know if you're familiar with a comedian named Andy Andrist. Andy Andrist is he's one of the funniest comedians I've ever seen, and he's a real jazz cat. He never does the same show twice. He will try to do the same show twice, but he's not able to. He can barely finish a sentence. His mind is all over the place. He's just great, and I love him dearly. He's a beautiful cat, and he's very, very close with Doug Stanhope. And with Doug Stanhope's help, after years of talking about this, they tracked down and confronted on camera Andy's childhood molester. And I'm making a comedy about it.
Holy smokes.
So you can tell it's challenging, right?
Well, I saw that Netflix documentary about the voyeur in the hotel, and that was pushing the envelope a little bit.
That was great,
Yeah.
right? I want to buy that hotel. It's already set up. It's got
the model maker to build our skyline.
You
It
could
was
steal
incredible.
sets from any number of talk shows and put one in each room. You're ready to go. But it's not just the challenge of this because Andy is a comedian. He processes all the pain in his life in a way that's really darkly funny, and so it's really a movie as much about Andy's experience with his molestation and all, but it's also a movie about looking at everything through the lens of comedy and turning real pain and anxiety that people spend their whole lives trying to get over into comedy that makes people laugh, and that's a pretty great paradigm. And you never see the paradigm of people who are coming to terms with abuse and sexual the tragedies in their lives.
Yeah.
You never see a paradigm where they really have put it all to a place where it doesn't hurt them anymore to
Right.
talk about it or
Right.
to whatever. You never see that put forth as a possibility. In fact, I have friends who are in the therapy field, psychiatrists, psychologists, family therapists, and they all talk about how so many people deal with this stuff in a way that is not really dealing with it. They deal with it, but they never actually conquer it. They manage it, they put it away, they get some sort of handle around it, but it's still painful.
Sure.
And the real ultimate,
Transcendence.
success is to where it's not painful and it's just another thing that happened to you that you do something with. So this is sort of an effort to put that kind of paradigm out there, to talk about how comedy as a lifestyle does so much for you, and so it's kind of cool.
Not knowing Andy's work as a comedian, does he talk about these things in his work? I think of Pryor back in the early days, and what made Pryor is his honesty.
Andy didn't talk about it for a long time because he didn't know how to make it funny.
Okay.
And it sort of, like he described it, is sort of like having a pair of sneakers in the dryer just going around and around and around for years, and the noise becomes sort of, throw marbles in there and rocks in there, and it just started to, it exacerbated his drinking problems. He maybe became really self-destructive. There are a lot of things in his life that he had to endure that has a lot to do with his mental state. It screwed up his career in a lot of ways because he was so unpredictable and all that sort of stuff. Eventually, he started talking about it to try and get a handle on it, and that's actually what drove him to say, you know what I got to do? I got to look this guy in the eye and say, you have been a big part of my life for all these years, and you haven't thought about me once. Now you're going to think about me. And as he said, he videotaped him when he was a kid, underwear modeling and all that sort of stuff and everything. And he said, now I have you on videotape. How does that feel? So it's really interesting. So there's a lot of different attitudes and emotions.
Holy crow!
Yeah,
man.
But here's the thing: it's really funny because Andy's stand-up is really funny, and Andy talking about it even he can talk about.
So he has gotten to that place, and
he has gotten to that place, and and this is the thing, is that in this documentary you will see most of that material, and when this is finally out there, he's going to stop doing that material because he doesn't need to anymore. Mm-hmm. So it's really, it's a great place as an artist to be in terms of the medium of comedy, and say, what the hell is in here? Let's see what's here. If I can take something, it is like climbing Mount Everest.
Yeah.
If I can take the most unfunny thing and actually make it funny and enjoyable to hear, I've accomplished something. I don't know what, but it's something.
It's a pretty big feat.
It's also a very tall order. Are you hard to stimulate? Are you hard to? I mean, you're so smart, clearly, and it seems like, it just seems like some of the stuff you talk about, like earlier it was about having to resell yourself every time to an audience and all that, and how that can get old. I'm really focusing more on the fact that I think you're doing good stuff, and I don't care about the rest.
That's how I
really
feel.
Interested
That's how I feel. I really feel like
this stimulates me. This story, this conversation. Oh, I'd follow that because I'm in.
That's where I'm at. I kind of had been doing it my whole life, and my unhappiest times in my career were when I wasn't really going down the path that felt right to me. Like I used to kid around about this sort of thing. I mean, my sensibility is pretty dark, and I like edgy stuff. I like stuff that's provocative. I like stuff that makes me think. I like stuff that makes me muse about things in a way I hadn't before, good or bad, whatever. I just like stuff that just gets in there a little bit, which is why when I was a kid, and George Carlin became like a massive part of my life, because he did that all the time. And so that's the stuff that spoke to me, right? And
you can move that if you want to get comfortable.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
Carlin for me pulled the curtain back. Was that what it was for you too? For me as a kid, he pulled the curtain back. He was telling me how things were.
Yes, Carlin. I grew up in a household that was a little bit severe. And my father was real strict, was one of those, kids should be seen, not heard kind of thing. Oh, yeah. Believed in real old world Italian discipline for a young son. And, it was pretty severe, right? Yeah. And I would always, whenever I would talk about something, it was always from an outsider's perspective. I always felt alien from day one. On Earth. And I think most people do, really. But I was very conscious of it. And I would constantly hear from my parents that, like, when I would say, "Why is it this way? Why is it that way? Why are we this? Why are we why?" And they would say to me, "Oh, I see. Everybody's out of step but you. So everybody's marching in the same step. You're not. You're the one who's right, and everybody else is wrong." And I would just, Well, when I got enough of George Carlin in my system, I was like, you know what? That may very well be true.
Yep.
It might not be, but I wouldn't rule it out as a possibility because people are fucking nuts. And that was life-changing for me. And so Carlin, through his art, kind of became the surrogate father figure for me. My dad died when I was 17. And so like 3, 4, 5 years into like really going nuts over George Carlin, he became like the sort of father figure in that, the inspiration, like that's the human I want to be.
I totally get it. What'd you steal of his?
Nothing. I never did. Never stole anything. But I will tell you this though. That's how I learned how to do stand-up. Because when I was in high school, I was on the student activities committee. And we were. Yeah, man. You get all kinds of time off. You get to ditch classes. You get to stay late.
That's what I see. Something go between the lines.
We used to have cocktails at 5. We had liquor in our lockers, and we would have cocktails at 5. So yeah, I'll join this thing so we could hang out and have nobody.
Awesome.
So I was on the student activities committee, and part of my duties were at lunch in the cafeteria. There were 2 or 3 lunch periods, and the lunch period I was in, it was my responsibility to inform everybody that was in the cafeteria at the same time of all the upcoming events. And after a few times, wiping mashed potatoes off your shirt, I go, I need to come up with something to make people listen to me. So I just started doing George Carlin and Robert Klein routines. Oh, man. And then I did a couple of David Steinberg routines, and so I would the comedian David Steinberg, and I think I even did so I would listen to this stuff. I would memorize it without trying to because I'd listened to it so much, and I knew it word for word, and I learned the rhythm, so I learned the thing, right? So I would get up, and it's before announcing things, I would do, a 6-minute hunk from a Robert Klein album or a George Carlin album, and that taught me the performance chops. Just imitating them taught me the performance chops. People listened to what I said.
There you go. Of course it was good for you, but you got the kids? You got them?
Of course, 'cause it was great. It was George Carlin and Robert Klein, and most people hadn't even heard of them. They weren't up late at night watching The Tonight Show. They didn't rush home to watch, somebody on Mike Douglas the way I did. So it was all like new to them. So I was like, it was great. So that's how I learned a lot of performance skills and a lot of performance chops and how to command attention.
This is amazing. My producer over here is telling me we have to take a quick break to sell some hot sauce. Please stay put, and I want to talk all about talk shows.
Could I have that? Could I have that?
Do you know Jordan Brady? You know who that is? This is his hot sauce.
He's got his own hot sauce?
He does. He sure does.
Fuck it. I'll get it from him.
All right. We'll be right back with these words from Oh So Delicious Hot Sauce. The hot sauce made by bears.
Oh, so delicious. It's the hot sauce made by bears. Garlic and serrano mixed with love and care. You can put it on your eggs, pour it on your rice. It's great on a leg, it's better on a slice. It's oh so delicious. It's the hot sauce made by bears. Oh, so delicious hot sauce. Great on everything except oatmeal.
Get your bottle today at ohsodelicious.org. $1 from every bottle sold goes to the National Military Family Association.
Wave that flag.
Yeah. And with that, we are back to talk all the talk show stuff with Mr. Paul Provenza.
Now I feel like I need hot sauce.
You want
It's
some
good.
hot sauce? Oh, it's delicious.
I do.
I wish we had a
Thank
chip
you.
or something. It's
Jordan
really good
Brady,
stuff.
very funny man.
Good stuff.
I knew Jordan when he opened for me 1,000,000 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, we used to work together in a handful of clubs. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I love Jordan. Now he's a big hot shot commercial director and made a great documentary or two about
hot
comedy and hot sauce.
Can we switch gears just a little bit? You just sort of segued into talk show stuff, and I grew up as a kid who just obsessed with all of this stuff. It wasn't just Dave. I also was watching the Mike Douglas, although that was reruns and stuff for me. But for me, it was, what was the other guy? Joe Franklin. Joe Franklin was in the afternoon.
Joe Franklin, who threatened to sue me.
Come on.
You don't know that story about the aristocrats?
Because of the Joe Franklin from WWOR?
I get a phone call.
Like
I get a phone call.
Ghostbusters?
I get a phone call from Joe Franklin. Listen, this movie, you know, Sarah Silverman accused me of raping her. This is really hurting my income. You know, I play a lot of old folks' homes and condo circuit and things. He goes, and this is really hurting me. He goes, I've lost like, you know, $100,000. I'm going to have to sue you for $100,000. And I said, how about I give you $5,000? He goes, okay.
Did HBO pay for it?
No, we paid $5,000 was fine to just get Joe Franklin from Illinois. But here's the funny part: is I told Sarah Silverman that Joe Franklin was threatening to sue me because she said he raped her, and he said, "Oh, let him sue. I'll press charges."
Oh my God. Jesus. Double down.
I said, Joe, anybody thinking that you actually raped Sarah Silverman is the best compliment you've had in decades. So really, chill out.
Pretty funny. I was the kid who, I mean, if you couldn't tell from all of this stuff, I was the kid who just was enamored with all that stuff, as well as watching you on, you know, whether it was, what's the one on 5? I'm drawing a blank. I mention it all the time on the show.
Comics Only,
Comic Strip Live,
Central,
Comic Strip Live, and then Evening at the Improv. All this stuff.
Right.
And then this, you know, I did a little something that got me off my track.
Well, David Letterman, you must have really responded to Letterman because he was very upfront about his affinity for the classic talk shows, and the, you know, he always considered himself a broadcaster because he was so into that thing that you were steeped in.
Yes, and I didn't realize any of that stuff till later. As a kid, I didn't know what the hell it was that I was drawn to or attracted to or stimulated by, whatever. As an adult, I think it might have been the complexity of the whole system, the whole project. And perhaps just the way he communicated. It was not dissimilar to Mr. Rogers for me. And that, when I was a kid, he was, again, the broadcasting, though, he was talking straight to you at home, whoever it was, versus just, hey, everybody, blah, blah, blah. I say that a lot as a joke, but I try to actually talk to the person if I can. I don't know how the hell we got on that. That's what it was. That's what it was for me.
I totally thought you were talking to me just now.
Nope, I was talking to them.
Wow,
Totally fooled you.
You're so good. He's good.
I know. All you talk to people learn how to communicate in a really neat way. And I love that about all of you.
Isn't it shocking how little that skill is known by people? I mean, it's really shocking how people don't actually really talk to each other.
Correct.
So it's ironic to do that with cameras and crap and yeah.
All of this to get me to the Green Room was to me a perfect talk show. Currently, what's on is Up Late, David Spade show, Lights Out with David Spade.
Right.
To me, this was almost a produced version of that show. Not only in just that, 4 chairs and a host, the whole thing.
Right.
Format-wise, it was very similar. But it's so written. The David Spade show, which I enjoy very much, is very written. It's very prepared. I don't believe anybody walks out on that stage not knowing what's coming up.
Yeah.
And I thought your show, and I'm sure you had notes and things, and maybe I'm wrong.
Nope.
But what came from that was just this magic.
Thank you. That means
it was everything. It sounds like you are describing that influences you and stimulates you.
Exactly.
Well, that's what I needed out of Letterman, and that's what I needed out of your show, and that's what I'm trying to do out of this show. That to me is very important. What is it? How do we monetize it?
Okay, I can answer part of that question. No, that means a lot to me. Thank you, because you're essentially saying,
I'm putting you in the
there's
same
a kid
category
out there at 14 who sees the green room and feels the things you're feeling.
I was trying to tell you that before, and that was
I appreciate that. That does mean a lot to me because especially from somebody who really is fluent in the talk show genre. But at first it seemed like people were under the impression that it was kind of like a Colin Quinn's Tough Crowd kind of thing.
Timing. I think because
but here's the thing, and actually Colin did the Green Room because
that episode.
To me, I loved Tough Crowd as well, but what I wanted to do was really strip away all show business. I really wanted to try and make it feel like what I used to feel. Still do whenever I'm in a green room. I remember the first show I ever did, the first TV show I ever hosted was a show called Comics Only. It was started on a network called Ha. While we were in production, Ha and the HBO Comedy Channel merged and became Comedy Central. So it was one of Comedy Central's first original programs, and the idea of it was, let's do the Tonight Show without anything but the comedians. Because when I watched the Tonight Show, I didn't care who was. I didn't care if the Rolling Stones were on. I didn't care if David Bowie. All the people that I love. I didn't care. That's not why I watched that show. It doesn't interest me watching music on television. I know that's kind of goofy, but it always bores me. Sure. But the comedians are what I wanted. So the premise of it was, what if we took everything else away and it was just the Tonight Show with comedians? Mm-hmm. So that was the premise of it. But I had a notion even back then that I wanted to try
comics only, right?
Comics only, right? I had a notion even back then that I wanted to try to create the vibe that I fell in love with when I got into the world of comedy, and that made me say, this is where I want to spend the rest of my life, like seriously. And I don't think I was as successful with that at the time, but interestingly, as different a show as it is, the Green Room is actually born of that impulse. After many, many years later, I was able to strip away all the stuff that got in the way of what I really wanted, which was what you described, which is real, true spontaneity and real, true, like, when comedians are hanging out, we don't necessarily have an agenda. Yeah, somebody might slip a little joke in here or there, sure. But then again, another comic will go, "Did you just shoehorn a joke into this conversation?" Yep. And that's all the stuff that I wanted. It can happen, but it's going to be acknowledged and all this. I just wanted some real authenticity in the experience of really funny people who, in my experience, are also really smart, just getting together, shooting the shit. So that's why the show starts mid-conversation. Yeah. It's why there is literally no agenda. There was no prep whatsoever. The only prep I had was like, okay, Roseanna's coming on, so I want to get that picture of her with the cookies that, was controversial. I want to get that, so I called out. But even, we don't, if something was on a monitor, we shot it on the monitor. Yeah. We didn't cut to production where it's in the frame by itself.
Was that the floor? Where were you for that?
We're in a nightclub. We were in a club on Hollywood Boulevard called it was at the time called the Vanguard. It was the Vanguard. Just a space. I just wanted an open space, but I did not want it to be in a studio. Mm-hmm. I wanted it to be a place where people could socialize. So there was a little party beforehand. We were already, maybe some people, but that was the other thing that people say, you can't serve liquor at a taping. I was like, where's that written? Why? I go, why do you have to treat the audience like they're idiots?
The audience was they were all comics too. It was
here's the other thing. The audience at the tapings were people who you find in a green room. That's how we were really striving for authenticity. It was personal email lists of myself, my producing partner Barbara Roman, a couple of other people on the staff, a couple of people who were on the show.
That's why it felt so inside.
That's it. I wanted the people who were there to be the kind of people who would normally be there, because then the conversation happens in a different way, because you don't have to explain anything. Everybody on the show is performing, but it's more like they're performing for their friends, not an audience, right? So I stripped away all agenda. There was literally no agenda, except maybe there were a couple of things that I wanted to ask a few people on a couple of episodes. And I told Bo that I was going to ask him to play the piano. Bo Burnham.
Oh, you did?
I told him that I was going to ask him to play the piano. But beyond that, it was nothing. We had no idea what was going on. I just let the conversation take its way. We taped for about an hour for every episode. Maybe I think the most we taped was maybe an hour and 10 minutes, and then edited it down to half hours. Yeah. So, but all I did was pull up space, because and the way I explained what I was doing was, when you had a great night the night before, and you tell somebody, you're not going to believe what a great night I had last night. You tell them the story. You only tell them the shit that was really fun for you. So that's what the edit was like, this is what made tonight a great night. So you cut out a lot of chaff and cut out a lot of things, whatever, but the flow is still natural and the same. So I told the production, we want cameramen who do news and sports. Because I used to get so frustrated by watching stand-up comedy. I always felt like
nobody gets this stuff. My eye does
okay,
too.
so you're into this? Should I keep going? It's not boring?
Please.
I always felt, I've done stand-up on comedy for decades, and I always stand-up comedy on television for decades, and I always felt like, why do I have to stand in this place? Why can't the camera find me? Why do I have to deal with what you're cutting? Why is some guy in a booth determining the timing of this exchange when that's a tech person, not a comedy person?
In the audience, you cover me.
I always felt like it took the life, that spark, that beautiful spontaneity of comedy out of the process. And I went, what if that's the thing that we care about the most, and everything else adapted to that? So that's why we had the cameras going around the circle, because I knew that if everybody were following the ball being the setup, the punchline, where the joke came from, whatever. I don't care that it's perfectly framed. I'm interested in you finding it, because you didn't know that Dana Gould was going to say that right there, and it's fucking hilarious.
In the crowd, and it's really,
exactly.
really enjoyable. Then you're a fly on the wall, and you're looking into the space, and you feel special. You feel like, I am lucky.
And more importantly,
in this room.
More importantly, it really truly is spontaneous, and the camera people are just going to have to get it.
Yep.
We sat the audience.
Too.
We let the audience in. We had some seats, but a lot of it was haphazard. A lot of it was like, boxes with pillows on it and random stools, and people were sitting on jackets and coats on top of beer kegs, and it was literally just the shit you'd find in the basement of a comedy club, and that was the seating. And, the production managers were like, we got to tape off the thing because the camera guys aren't going to have room to move and everything. I went, no, tell the camera guys to move the way they want to. The audience is where they're sitting. To let the camera guys deal with it. That's what I want to see on camera. That this is not all programmed. That this is, spontaneous. And so that's what we did. We just literally took all the obvious stuff, threw it out the window, and said, you know what? People are not idiots. 9 times out of 10, the camera guy had no problem, because whoever was sitting there saw the camera guy coming and would just back up.
It's organic. It's organic.
Yeah,
just
and people have to wait. You go to a taping, as you know, you go to a taping, any talk show, you go to any taping, and it's hours of waiting for shit to happen, and you got to be there at 2 p.m. for a show that tapes at 5, and you can't move here, and you can't do that, and the camera, testing the shots, and it's like, you're already dead. Already the best stuff about comedy's gone.
Yeah.
So we would just show up, we're going to have a party, show up, we're going to have cameras there, and that's it.
One of my favorite episodes had one of my favorite people in it who I've met but did not get to know very well. And anytime somebody's here who also knew that guy, I kind of pick their brain. And that guy's Gary Shandling.
Oh, yeah,
Gary Shandling
yeah.
is incredibly special to me. He got even more special after he passed away.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people who feel like I got a piece of him somehow,
Yeah.
He's
and by the way, it was really
important to me, and you knew him, and that show, that episode is one of my favorites. It's
Yeah,
one of the
me
early
too.
ones too. But the interaction of everybody, that might have been when Bo played the piano.
That's
because
the
Gary's
same
line
episode,
was-
yeah.
I'm sorry, Bo set it up with because it was Ray Romano. It's a bunch of
Yeah. And Bo
middle-aged
gets up to go to the piano, and Ray Romano goes, "Oh, look, a prop act." Yeah, it's so funny. But did that not feel like it was in
real. It
was
that's really a
great.
green room vibe right there?
But Bo says, I'm sorry, just for me and for any of the newcomers, can you just start by explaining who are all of you? And Gary's, after his beat and everything, that was so good. It's
Thanks.
so good because it was so mutual. And the way he leaked it out was so great.
It's
And
beautiful,
just magic
right?
moments that I don't feel ever would have been created, even in an environment like this.
I totally agree, and that episode is a great example of one that made me say, "This proof of concept. There's a difference here. It's really working," and I was really happy with it, But
anything
it was a
about
real
Gary.
honor to have Gary on the show, and he was not a very trusting cat. He was very, he'd been burned a lot. He was very introspective, and was in an odd place philosophically for quite some time, really going down the Zen road and the spirituality.
Publicly, openly among his peers, too.
Yes. And I actually had related to Gary about that, and I really loved talking with him about his, how he's trying to embrace Zen and how it affected his work and kept him in a little bit of limbo. After you're Gary Shandling, you already do 2 groundbreaking sitcoms that completely alter the form. What do you do next? So he was in that kind of a space, and I really, really dug talking to him about that stuff. And because Kelly Carlin, George's daughter, is a dear friend of mine, I directed her solo show about growing up with her dad. She's just like one of the greatest, most soulful people on earth who really also understands comedy, you know.
It's a big deal.
A huge deal, right? She's such a treasure in my life. She was able to gain Gary's trust and say, Gary, this is me talking to you now. I promise you. You don't have to worry about anything, you know. And she convinced him that, you know, that I was the real deal and I wasn't going to do that. So through that whole episode, I'm pushing him to talk about his Zen stuff.
It's so clear.
And
he clearly doesn't want to.
And he so clearly doesn't want to. And I finally break him down, and he says something so simple and so beautiful. And after the show, he was like, wow, I really enjoyed that. And it was like, you know, a personal Oscar. I have a whole bunch of little personal Oscars, you know, like making Steve Martin pass a little water through his nose at a press conference. Yeah, I got a lot of little personal Oscars that nobody knows about, don't care, don't need them to know about it. Well, you know,
that's a good one from Gary, though.
Yeah, George Carlin calling me up, telling me jokes, little personal Oscar.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Calling you up to what?
Oh, my favorite one. Oh, my favorite one. He would call up and go, you know, it wasn't like he'd call me to pick him up at the airport, but you know, he kept me in his life. He made an effort to keep me in his life. He invited me down to see shows and talk about material he was working on and stuff. I mean, like,
That's
you don't
so
understand. Cool. That is like, I could die happy, right? Yeah. But yeah, I remember picking up the phone one day, and he wouldn't introduce himself either. I just I pick it up. I go, hello. He goes, so why don't men like to eat their women out in the mornings? I said, I don't know, George. Why? He goes, do you ever try and open a grilled cheese sandwich? Click. Little personal Oscar. I got a call. I don't know, 10,000 people might have gotten that call. I don't give a shit. Little personal Oscar.
I think I saw that on the green room.
I may have told that story. Yeah, I may have told that story because why wouldn't you?
So,
I'm going to tell that story every time. I'll tell that story in court. I'll tell that story any chance I get because it's George motherfucking Carlin.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah. So no, I'm really touched by how you describe in the green room because as I told you guys before, I felt like it was the first time I was really authentically myself on camera. I didn't give a shit about what anybody thought. I'm in a room with comics. You can't be stuck up or self-conscious in a room full of comics. They bust you all the time. It was just great.
Is that streamable anywhere?
It is on Showtime On Demand.
Okay.
So if you have
highly
that,
recommend this. It's not just another talk show, and it's got to be 10 years old now, right? Probably.
Yeah,
10,
maybe 11 or 12.
But the
at this
people who
point.
are on it are just every bit as current now. I mean, some maybe have passed away. No, I think most people are still.
Well, it's interesting to see a new young Kumail Nanjiani on the show.
Great, but for you know, as Tommy Smothers. Was
yeah.
Actually, it might have been Dickie Smothers. I can't remember.
No, it was Tommy. It was Tommy, and I put him on. I put Tommy Smothers on an episode with Penn Jillette and Martin Mull, and that was actually that was the tightest group. Normally it was 4 or 5 people, but this one was just the 3 of them and myself. You know what Showtime's response to that was?
No,
it's 3 old guys. I had an episode with Robert Klein and Rick Overton.
Yep.
And Jonathan Winters. And their response was, that's 2 old guys. You can't have so many old guys.
But Rick was in the audience in one of them.
Rick was at every taping.
He was there,
because comics loved to come to this thing because it felt right to them.
It was fun, right?
And I had 2 sound guys with massive booms, the longest booms I'd ever seen. There was one guy. Can I stand up?
Sure.
Can I stand up?
Yeah.
There was one guy. He was like this. Because this thing was long and heavy, so that he could swing all the way across to be spontaneous for whenever somebody from the audience wanted to chip in, right? And I was like, oh my God, dude. And after the first taping, afterwards, he's walking around like this. I'm like, oh my God, you hurt yourself doing that. Turns out he had a car accident years ago. His spine is fused. That's the way his body works anyway.
The only guy who can do that job.
That was his normal position. I went, is this not the perfect gig for you?
Unbelievable.
It's hilarious.
That's great. Richard Chassler, what are we missing here? There's something. Oh, no, I have something. Because this is for Mrs. Ryan, though. I remember this show, but I don't remember you on it. She used to totally love Empty Nest.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I remember Joe Azuzu being on Empty Nest. What was I can't remember that comic's name, but he played Joe Azuzu on the commercials for Azuzu back in the. He was the next door neighbor. There you go.
Leisure, thank you. My God,
So-
I'm really upset that it didn't come to my mind.
I remember all
Great
of this
guy, by the way, really
time
funny.
frame. I remember that Saturday night on NBC. I remember it was paired with Nurses for a little bit. I remember all of this stuff.
They used to do crossovers between Golden Girls, Nurses, and Empty Nest.
Too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Stephanie Hodge, right?
Look at this. They're bringing the whole thing together. What were you on Empty Nest? On Empty Nest.
I played Dinah Manoff's boyfriend, who ended up living in the garage and ended up getting her pregnant and marrying her.
Oh my God.
Did I marry her? Was that show? I am the world's foremost assayer of the role of the star's short-lived boyfriend. I spent a lot of time doing that on sitcoms.
Do you prefer acting to comedy, or do you have a preference in your, writing, producing, directing? You have done pretty much everything at this point.
I love acting. I love acting. I've been doing it for a long time. I studied at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts in London.
Jesus.
I have a degree in theater arts.
Well, then you get our little black box here.
You guys don't get it. This is if I could redo my house right now, it would look like this. I'm so jealous.
That is a riot.
No, I love it. I've always comedy has been my passion, and it's and a life changer for me. I mean, it really did. It wasn't a coping mechanism. I mean, it wasn't an escape for me. It was a coping mechanism. It really helped me make sense of a lot of shit.
Childhood stuff,
and so that comedy is absolutely. And the idea of just getting up in front of a room full of people and having them listen and pay attention after my childhood, where it was like, seen and not heard kind of thing, I think it really spoke to me. I mean, I remember being like 6 and seeing comics on the Ed Sullivan Show and being fascinated by that form alone. Like, I mean, they had jugglers and dancing bears and puppets and singers and actors, and everybody was on that show.
Well, why did it
but
cut
I
through?
zeroed
What was
in.
it?
I think it was because here's somebody saying something that's just about being funny, making people laugh, and everybody's riveted. They were
There's
just
nothing important about
completely
what you're
focused,
saying, but everyone's
completely focused. And
That's a weird thing.
I think having somebody pay attention to you when I was a little kid was like, that's a dream, like right there. And also I had amblyopia, which is lazy eye, so I had no 3-dimensional vision.
I had
Right?
that
I had
too.
surgery. Did you?
Yeah, depth perception was a problem. It's still lazy. I used to get
Depth perception is a
20 in one eye
problem.
and 130 in the other.
Right. Still to this day, I had surgery when I was about 8 years old. I wore glasses, eye patch. I had to do all these eye exercises and shit. I'm a little tweaky right now.
You look fine if they feel like they're moving.
I'm
They look
squinting and stuff right now, but it's because I think I have a little bit of an eye irritation right now, and it's really bothering me. I have to go to the doctor.
Is it coronavirus?
I have to look it up, but I don't think it's coronavirus. But anyway, so the eye thing was a big deal for me. I had no depth perception, and as a result, I was always tripping and falling and bumping into things. And I'd like turn a corner, and my glasses would catch.
Yeah,
the
I
thing,
still to
and they
this
would
day.
break. And my mother's United Federation of Teachers Insurance would only buy one pair of glasses a year, so it was big hunks of Scotch tape for 10 months out of the year until I could get new glasses. And it was just miserable. And then, tripping, falling, bumping into things, breaking things, all that kind of stuff. That's my childhood. My mother used to call me Captain Klutz. She'd get mad at me if I was at somebody's house and I'd trip over a coffee table. It was always this source of tension. It was never, oh my God, the kid has a problem. Cut
Right.
him some slack. It was just like,
No,
no,
let's just be critical.
You got a problem. Shape up and deal with it, right? Then I would go to the movies and I would watch Jerry Lewis do all the shit that I was getting in trouble for, and people loved him.
Scores of laughter.
So I had a conscious understanding of, if I make this funny, it's not so bad.
Switch the paradigm.
And that's how it happened to me. And I must have been about 6, 7 when I realized that shit.
You were so much more impressive to me than I thought you would be today. I know he's got to go. I'm just enamored with you more than I thought I would be. I was excited for the show because I thought, this will be a really fun
You
show.
want to come back to my place?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason why
All
not.
right, bud. I don't think he wanted you. Did you? Her? Is she coming?
But let me tell you, this
I'll stay here.
coronavirus thing is really here. I had to stop turning tricks on Santa Monica Boulevard.
Oh, the
This is
times
crazy.
are tough. Oh, ba-dunk. How do you feel about that when somebody adds a da-dunk or something like that to a joke? I know. I have.
I'll tell you how I
like to
feel
ask
about it.
comics
Seriously, I'm going to tell you how I feel about
Let's
it. It's
hear
a
it.
fucking insult because that means you think I don't know that's what I'm doing. How dare you? How dare you not know that I know when I'm doing corny shit because it's corny? How dare you? That's how I feel about that, my friend. Now you got me all riled up. I'm storming off the set.
Oh, I'm sorry, we're out of time, and that's been. I hope you've at least remotely enjoyed this experience.
I've enjoyed it immensely. I've not talked about myself this much without weeping in quite some time, so I'm enjoying it.
Normally we would have made you cry, but with the virus and everything, it's a little heavy out there.
I
so
know
we're
you
trying
don't
to
want
lighten it up a
bodily
little
fluids. Just they're not bodily fluids.
bit. Would you please come back sometime because there are
I'm moving
there
there.
are
I'm
more
living
places
that.
I want to go with you. There are more things I
Any-
want to know about. There are more. I feel
Anytime.
like there's way more stuff that we just straight up didn't get to
Yeah.
with your career and just you as a dude.
Sure. Apparently now this is my career.
Nice. Yeah. Well, what else are we gonna do?
There's worse careers.
Exactly. How
I
upset
know.
could I get?
We do a segment on the show called Final Thoughts. If you've been watching lately, you know. Some people give some advice to the world. Some people say, check out my Instagram. There's really no rule to it. But you have an opportunity to talk to camera right here.
Wow, I'm so unprepared. Here's my advice. Don't listen to anybody's advice.
That's the best advice I've ever heard.
It's crazy.
Make your own soup, I say.
I'm going to start saying that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You're going to take my soup thing?
I'm going to put Jordan Brady's hot sauce
Oh,
right
no!
in it.
It's good on everything.
We're
Except
happening.
oatmeal.
Except oatmeal.
Final thoughts. I don't know. Final thoughts are...
Oh, I thought we... All right.
Final... Oh, did I screw you up?
No,
Sorry.
back to it.
My final thoughts really are, ultimately it's all about love. It's just all about love. I know it sounds goofy, and it was a revelation to me to go, holy shit, that cornball John Lennon song is fucking right. It really is. Just love the people around you, and if enough of us do that, guess what? We get a whole world full of love. It's just too much. It's crazy.
It's as good as it gets right there, brother.
Love the people you love. Love them. Show them you love them. Accept their love. That's important too. But right now, no bodily fluids because we got a whole thing happening. Other than that,
Paul Provenza, how do we follow you on social media? Are you on the Twitter and the
I am on
Facebook and
Twitter.
all that stuff?
I am on Twitter, but I also recommend following at Aristocrats Film on Twitter because that is just the rudest, vilest tweets that could
has anything to do
possibly
with the
be
film.
found. Sometimes there's a few things about the film, but mostly it's just what is the most offensive thing that anybody's come across today. So it's a hilarious feed. Satiristas, at Satiristas, which is the feed for the book I did with Dan Dion, is news and funny shit about the news. Actually, really, it's pretty informative. And my own Twitter feed, which I go to sometimes. But there's a lot of people I owe money to, so I don't always check in. I do have a Facebook page, but I stopped going to it for about 5 years now because I realized that Facebook is evil and is going to destroy the world, and I no longer want any part of it. My page is still up in case I have anything to promote because I'm a fucking whore. Because I'm not too proud to admit it, that I will use it when I need to, but I just don't need to right now. And what else? No Instagram. I don't have Instagram because, God damn it, I just said enough of that. I don't know what I don't
There's
even
like 3 new
understand.
ones since then. I'm sticking with Instagram.
I know. I think there's
Snapchat.
there's 15 new platforms since we started talking. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So, and keep an eye out for this documentary film which doesn't have a title yet.
We don't have a name for that.
I don't know yet. It might be It might be not soon enough.
Okay.
A comment on too soon.
I see.
It might be wood chip check. Because there's a whole story about checking for wood chips up children's
Like a tick
butts,
check.
which is a true story. It might also just be the Ryans story. I don't know what I'm going to call it. We don't know yet, but keep an eye out for it.
All right.
How
All the
random
places
is
you can
that?
check
Keep
in
an
with.
eye. Just watch what comes out at all times because it will come out sometime.
I think we need to get the industry more not so sour on Paul Provenza and this guy from Eyes Wide Shut. All right, Mrs. Ryan, that's enough. I love you so much. We don't know. We may or may not be here tomorrow, right? Based on guest, because Tom Ridings won't be here. So,
Yes.
in the meantime, I love you so very much.
Love you too.
Paul Provenza, we love you so very much.
Thanks for having me. Really, this was really goofy fun. I enjoyed it.
It means a lot
immensely.
to us that you came by and that you actually acted like you enjoyed it. Richard
I'm a good
Chassler, we
actor.
love you. We love you at home. Please love one another, and we will see you out there maybe tomorrow.